and I am the Chief Legal Counsel to the Speaker. We are here to ask your consideration on Bill 7715, which the Speaker put in at the request of the Attorney General. This bill seeks to amend current law, which provides currently that any person convicted of the sale, delivery, distribution of a controlled substance, the sale of which would constitute a felony under current law, that distribution to a minor that results in the death of that minor currently is a penalty of imprisonment for a term of life. The legislation that you have currently before you would amend the current law to change the reach of this provision from a minor to persons regardless of their age. So it would address a victim of any age. Over 40 other states currently have statutes that provide criminal liability for a drug overdose death. While the Attorney General is here tonight and will speak to you about the policy behind this legislation, we think it's important that the committee notes that overdose deaths are not accidents, they're incidents. They are incidents that result in a deceased victim and a heartbroken family. And you will hear tonight from Kristen Kutuzov's mother, Sue Kutu, about the death of her daughter. The primary focus of any overdose death, therefore, should be the victim, which is why this act and the change to this legislation is so important. Overdose deaths are the leading cause of injury deaths in Rhode Island. In fact, overdoses kill Rhode Islanders more than suicide, homicide, violence-related deaths, and motor vehicle crashes combined. Drug traffickers who are selling deadly substances to those struggling with addiction need to be held criminally responsible for their liability for the deaths that they cause. We are in discussions with the Attorney General about amending this bill as it relates to the penalty, where we're considering giving discretion to the Superior Court judge, where the penalty will be up to life and not a mandatory life sentence, and also further defining that of a delivery to solely focus this legislation on actual drug dealers versus two people who perhaps are together, addicted to drugs, doing drugs together, and one person gives another person a controlled substance which may lead to the death. So with those two amendments in mind that we hope to bring back to this committee in the near future, we ask that you consider this bill, as it's very important to address the epidemic that is hitting Rhode Island in staggering numbers. And on behalf of the Speaker, I thank you for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Iaquinta. Any questions for Danica? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Drug dealers. So
Yes.
give me an explanation or a definition of a drug dealer. Are we talking just doing it one time? Are we talking somebody who has a continuous record of doing this? What would they consider?
I think you have to go back and look at the current statutes and definitions that pertain to delivery of a controlled substance, and I think you also need to look at the person's record and whether they have one or not, the habitual nature of perhaps whether they've been convicted of delivery of controlled substances. But all these factors would go into, I think, a charging decision by the Attorney General and their discretion to take all the facts into consideration revolving a defendant and the facts of the case itself.
So, in this bill, I apologize, I put words in your mouth, so I am surely wrong. There is going to be some sort of amendment or amendments to this bill?
We're
Does that
discussing
include the drug dealer issue?
Yes.
What is that amendment?
We don't have it, I don't have it currently. We've been in discussions about it, and it's something that we think is most likely necessary.
How
I
many
think,
others-
Rep. Almeida, I think she's talking about a proposed sub-A.
Yes.
So do we have that?
We do not have
Not
that.
at this moment.
So how many other states do this already?
40.
40? Connecticut, Mass?
I believe so. I know the Attorney General is here. Yes, Connecticut
Okay.
and Mass also have that, have the similar statutes.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Representative Price?
Just wanted to be recorded in the affirmative.
Yes, so ordered. Any further questions for Ms. Iacquinta? Yes, Representative O'Grady.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just some questions about the type of death that we're talking about. You've characterized this as an overdose.
Yes.
Is that the only case in which this would apply?
This current law, yes.
Okay, and that language is found starting on line 9,
Yes.
suggestion orally. Okay, so if the drug in question impairs someone's judgment and they subsequently do something that leads to their death, that would not qualify under this law. Is that correct?
Again, taking these hypotheticals into question, I think I can't give you a specific answer to that question. I think when a charging decision comes up with the Attorney General's office and with the law enforcement who is responding to a scene, whether it be at a hospital where someone has come in under with medical conditions of perhaps an overdose taking place, or at a scene of a crime, I think all of those factors come into play when the Attorney General and the appropriate law enforcement agency is looking at the case, getting it prepared, and submitting it to a grand jury.
Okay, let me be more specific in the scenario that I'm spelling out, right? So right now you can possess, probably purchase, certainly can be gifted to you marijuana, which in Massachusetts, which is a covered substance under the Controlled Substance Act in this state.
Yes.
So let's say someone is in Massachusetts, has a certain quantity gifted to them, they come to Rhode Island and they say to their roommate or a friend, you know what, this cost me $30, it's yours for $30, I don't need it. That person buys it, subsequently, perhaps after drinking, smokes the marijuana, becomes disoriented, gets in a car accident, dies. Would that apply in this case?
No,
It would not.
it wouldn't.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further questions? Is that Representative Knight?
Why wouldn't it apply? As I'm reading the law, it appears that the factual situation just put out by Representative O'Grady would qualify, because you have a person who sells or delivers a controlled substance, that's marijuana, which would constitute a felony, which it is, to a human being, resulting in a death by it was ingestion orally, or actually inhalation would cover it as well.
I think when you look at the facts that specifically, that you could make the argument, as you are, that perhaps it would apply. I think from a charging decision, from the intent of this legislation to specifically look at overdose deaths fentanyl related, which are a big factor. And again, the Attorney General is here. One of the prosecutors that worked on Kristen's case is here, and they can discuss with you the factors that go into their charging decision. But I also was a prosecutor for over 11 years, and the scenario that Representative O'Grady has presented, I do not believe is what this bill contemplates.
So how many other ways could a prosecutor charge that factual scenario in addition to this law if it was passed to accomplish the same result, which is to address the injustice involved in the death?
I think they have many tools at their disposal.
They could charge
that case.
They could charge second-degree murder.
They can charge manslaughter. You'd have to look at the facts.
No, let's say we're looking for
Case.
let's say we're looking for a life sentence. Could they charge second-degree murder as the law stands today?
I'm not going to speak for the Attorney General, nor will I speak for they. I don't think they work backwards to say we're looking for a life sentence, so therefore, how do we charge a case?
Could they charge felony murder?
You'll have to ask them, but I don't see why they couldn't.
Okay.
Okay, any further questions? Representative Price?
Chairman. So, from what I understand, the federal government has declared the opioid crisis a public health emergency in 2017. Is it my understanding that is Rhode Island aligning with that federal acknowledgement that opioid is a crisis and should be addressed here? And should we match the federal guidelines that's being presented for the opioid crisis?
Those are policy decisions that I don't feel comfortable answering.
Okay.
I think if the opioid crisis in Rhode Island is a crisis,
Yep.
we just need to turn on the news and read the paper to see that. And there are several ways of attacking the crisis: legislation, counseling,
Yep.
rehab, different things.
Yep. I just understand that President Trump has called for stricter penalties on drug trafficking, much more than what we're calling for. But I applaud Rhode Island for addressing this and somewhat align with the federal mandates. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Thank you, Danica.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you.